Pleased to be joined here on Sports Spectrum and returning to Sports Spectrum, actually, Liam Hendriks, the Oakland A's pitcher, 2019 American League All-Star. Liam, welcome back to Sports Spectrum, buddy.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so good to see you. I saw a picture. You're wearing a hat as we tape this on Zoom, but I saw a picture on your Instagram that, with COVID-19, you've kind of let the mane grow and just get going. Can we see a little bit of that for those that are watching the Zoom? Can you pull that off?
So
oh wow, look at that.
It gets up there, but the biggest thing is it's just a little too long on the top is what it is because I wear a hat for a living, so it's fine. Right. The side's the thing that's getting me right now, but it's been getting into my ears and just generally annoying me. So hopefully we can figure this all out and I can go see a barber here in the next few weeks.
That's right. Hopefully. Well, I think it looks good. So keep it going as long as you want. But let me go back, I guess, a little bit, obviously in the middle of a pandemic. Take me back to like mid-February. You're arriving in Arizona. It's spring training. You're getting ready for 2020. You even see action in, I believe, 5 spring training games before everything was shut down. When did the coronavirus begin to become something that you were paying attention to as far as it affecting you? Certainly affecting everybody, but just as far as it affecting what you were doing as a baseball player.
Yeah, so you hear reports. Obviously, I know a bunch of guys in the KBO and the NPB and stuff like this, so all over the world playing. So it's like I heard a couple of things out of like areas like that, like, yeah, this is like people are taking it pretty seriously over here. Like, what's the deal over there? Yeah. And we hadn't really heard too much about it. Obviously, when you do it like a little bit of a dive into it, you can figure it out and do that. But baseball-wise, it was like, okay, this is going on. Just be safe and we'll be fine. And then all of a sudden it just kept growing and growing and growing. And all of a sudden it was, we're canceling spring training. We're not sure how long for. So my wife and I just decided to stick around in Arizona. And it was mainly just due to the fact of like, we don't know what's going to happen. We have 4 pets. I don't want to try and go all the way back to Florida and then find out in 2 weeks that I have to be back all the way back in Arizona. And then everything's going back to normal because I mean, pets are pretty important to Christy and I, so we wanted to make sure we had them at all times. But it was a crazy time. Like I probably started paying attention to it probably just before, just the first week of February. I was in San Francisco for a thing on February 1st for the Australian US Commerce dinner. So we did that, and then after that, I came back. I was like, wow, like. This is getting pretty serious because people over there were starting to talk about it and then I started getting into it a little bit more. And luckily my wife's a bit of a germaphobe, so I've always had that kind of ingrained into me that, hey, wash your hands, hey, do this, hand sanitize as soon as you get in the car. So we had we were lucky in the fact that we had a stockpile of hand sanitizer and wipes and stuff like that before all this happened. It was just, that was what she did. She always made sure she was prepared.
Interesting. And you chose to stay in Arizona. Can you explain a little bit about, was part of that reason just because you don't know what's going to happen and maybe it was going to be the next couple of weeks? Or some people thought initially that it just might be a week or 2 or 3. It's turned into multiple months now and you're still in Arizona. Can you kind of share a little bit about just the idea of staying back in Arizona instead of going back to Florida?
Yeah, it was just the unknown. So obviously we have 4 pets and it was just, we don't want to take them all the way across country to have to do it again in a couple of weeks because we don't know, like my dog, she's getting up there in age. She's 8 now. She's a little bit overweight because she's had some issues. And so it's like, we just don't know health-wise how flying really affects them. So if we do it once every 6 months, it's not too bad. But if we do cross-country trips twice in the same, like in a couple of weeks, it's just could be very bad for their health. But the other thing is like, we didn't know what was going to happen. So we had our rental place here through the end of April, the end of March. And then we pivoted and we were able to like, okay, look, this could be mid-April that all of a sudden we're starting spring training up again. Let's just stick it out here. We've got friends here. I've got a place to throw here. And that was the other thing. Like in Florida, I was throwing at a college. Well, college is shut down as well. So I'm not sure who's around if I can throw bullpens and all this. So luckily I've been able to throw bullpens out here. I've been going to a physical therapist out here just to kind of get things going, because I had a little bit of a side thing going on. So I was just making sure that I'm capable and prepared, and hopefully hopefully we're right around the corner once we get all this settled out and we can get back to spring training.
That's what I was going to ask you. When you first pivoted, because it's the unknown, you said you had a place to throw, and that's good, obviously, and I'm sure you've been throwing, but Was the mindset when you realized this isn't going to be something that's going to turn around within 2 weeks, this is going to be months here that we're going to be waiting, did your mindset go back to maybe where you were in December, January on your throwing plan? Or did you kind of just try to continue where you were because you had already thrown in some spring training games and you were kind of building up what you were getting ready for in 2020 to play another season?
Yeah, initially I just tried to continue it on. I was planning on doing 2 bullpens a week every week until it started up again, just to kind of remain that. And then in my one of the bullpens, I had a little side thing go on, so that kind of pivoted, and I took a few weeks off throwing just to be able to make sure that that was healthy and getting back into it. So we're starting to get back to the bullpens now. Hopefully next week I can get on that. But other than that, like yeah, it's just like that I would have remained completely normal because I took 2 weeks off at the end of the season and then started throwing again and then started throwing bullpens again in November. So it's just like I'm always a guy who throws a lot. And so this has been something that I had planned on, obviously unforeseen circumstances, and had to stop throwing for a little bit, but we're back into it now. And hopefully kind of once this whole spring training 2.0 starts up, I'll be back to 100% and get 3 or 4 outings in, and we can go, and wherever we're playing, we can get into it.
Go back to, I think it was March 10th was the last game that you actually, not you, but the team played in. And then you got a rain out, I believe, March 11th, which was Wednesday. That's the day when everything hit the fan, right? The NBA suspended their season. And then March 12th is really the day when the sports world stopped. There was a couple, I think, preseason games, exhibition games in baseball. And then the rest were like, nah, this has got to stop. We can't do these. What thoughts and emotions were you having when you saw that that was going to happen, that the MLB season was placed on hold? Just at that moment, was there shock? Was there, were you surprised? Maybe you weren't surprised. What thoughts and emotions kind of went through your brain then, even being able to look back now that in all that's transpired in the last couple months?
Yeah, so it was definitely weird. I was meant to actually throw on the 12th on the Thursday. I was meant to go to Glendale to throw against the Dodgers, and it was raining that day as well. And so Christy was actually in Ohio at the time. She was scouting out some stuff, and I was so I would go to the field and I'd come back just to make sure the dogs were fine because I didn't want to leave them for. I leave at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I don't want to leave them to 6 and possibly not get home till 5. I just want to make sure that they were doing okay. So I went home and I was constantly texting the pitching coach, Scott Emerson, and be like, "Hey, what's the deal? Are we playing? Are we playing? Are we playing?" Just through rain, he goes, and it was just like always a game time. It's like, okay, well, let's see, we'll see, we'll see. And then so I was probably going to leave the house around 11:30,
Yeah.
and at like 11:20, he's like, "No, no, no, it's done. Don't worry about it. It's rained out." And then the next day, we go to the field and say, "Hey, everything's banged. We're not sure what's going to happen. Stay tuned." And that was pretty much like our team meeting we had was, we don't know what this is going to look like, so just prepare as you would anything, and see how it goes. Some guys, like most people, waited probably through the weekend, and then all of a sudden Monday it was like, okay, it's still not up, and then guys started trickling and going home, and then that was when guys had the decisions to make. We know guys who stayed out here for an extra 2 weeks and then realized that it's going to be longer and then went home. We just decided to stick it out, and I mean it's a little toasty here in Arizona right now. It was last week you got up to like 107, so
Oh boy. Yeah, it's the
yeah.
spring training is supposed to be the 70s and 80s, and then you get out of that and go to
Yep.
Oakland or go to wherever, and it's a little bit less, but you hang in there. So let's talk about your faith a little bit in terms of, we know it's important to you. We shared your faith story the last time you were here with us on Sports Spectrum, but just what the Lord has maybe been showing you during quarantine time. I think he's been kind of working on the hearts of a lot of the believers, especially athletes that we've talked to over these last few months during this pandemic. What's he been showing you now for the last few months?
I've just taken the notice that I needed to slow things down a little bit. Obviously, I was preparing and I was ready to go, and I was actually quite upset when it all started. Like when we kind of stopped it all. I mean, I constantly look on the bright side of life, so I wasn't that way, but I was upset because I felt like I was finally hitting my stride. I'm finally getting to the position where I know I can be at physically and mentally and everything, and it just slowed me down. So it took me a step back, and all of a sudden, it's like, no, no, no. There's certain things that we need to kind of look at in retrospect. So that was cool. Like it's been great to be able to sit at home and be with my wife and just go through, like, I mean, we didn't have any issues or troubles or anything like that, but just kind of going over a relationship and everything like that it's been really cool to just being able to spend a lot of time with him, because even during the season I'm gone at 12. and I don't get home till 11. So yeah, we stay together, we're there, but we're not really there that often. Like we'll get maybe 3 hours a day, and then that's about it. And that's all we can kind of communicate with each other. So it's just it's been nice being able to be home. Realize I don't want to be retired anytime soon, but it's been great because I've done several podcasts, some Zoom meetings, everything like that with pastors all throughout the country, and it's been really phenomenal. Just the kind of outpouring and the fact of what I can give back while not playing is, I feel like, sometimes a lot more important than what I can do on the field or during the season. And so it's been really nice knowing that there's other people around that I'm able to kind of go through. Christy had a really big impact on a Bay Area like church group, the Bay Area youth group, and it was just it's been phenomenal being able to kind of reach out to people that we normally wouldn't touch, we wouldn't have a relationship with, and we can go through and have that kind of spiritual relationship. They can guide us, we can guide them, and that back and forth that's just huge because right now there's no church to go to. We don't
Right.
have any kind of spiritual basis or anything like that. So you dive into the word and you just kind of talk to people with the same mindset, and it's just eye opening.
Liam Hendriks is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. You're coming off your career year, right? 2019 was obviously an amazing season for you. You were an all-star for the first time, a lot of attention being paid to you. What was last year like for you to experience? And I want to kind of dive into it from a few levels, from a professional experience, from a personal experience, and from a spiritual experience. What was last year like for you?
Like, obviously it was a really cool year. Like I had a great year. But it was one of those things where I last year was the first year I've gone into a year with kind of zero expectations and zero kind of like I didn't need anything from the team. I was going in there, and I came off a year last in 2018 where I was up and down a little bit. I kind of had some mental challenges going on, and it was just one of those things where I needed to kind of step back and be like, look, I can't expect if they tell me I'm the sixth inning guy today, that doesn't mean I'm going to be the sixth inning guy the entire season. So I need to make sure that I know that, and if I get put into the second or the third inning, that I am completely fine with it. And that was my mindset. Like, so I started the year off. I had a couple openings. I pitched in the fifth inning, the sixth inning, the seventh inning, the third inning, the fourth. I pitched throughout the entire game, and I think going in with a mindset that you don't need, like, I didn't need to kind of be expected to throw the sixth inning, and if I didn't get in the sixth inning, I would go down a kind of it was just that snowball effect, and I get all rattled. So I was going in there with that mindset that doesn't matter what role I'm in, I'm just going to go out there and pitch. And as the season went on, it kind of progressed into me moving into a little bit of a later inning role, which is a lot more fun, to be honest. But
Sure.
yeah, I mean, it played into my mindset a little bit more. I got a little angrier on the mound. I was able to kind of work on that focus on the mound where it was focused during the at bat, and then as soon as the at bat was over, I could joke around with whoever's on the field or anything like that. And keeping it that lighthearted has been eye opening for me. Just being able to go there, and I don't need to focus for the entire inning. I don't need to focus for everything. I can take a step back, joke around a little bit, and then get angry again. And then emotionally, it was yeah, that was it was emotionally it was cool. Like, I mean, I'm at the house, I'm just kind of hanging out with my wife, and I mean, it was just I realized that Chrissy is more important to me on the field than I ever expected. Uh, when you get married, you don't think about your wife as someone who's going to like help you on the field as much as she did last year.
Hmm.
Like, there was times where I was getting way above my skis. I was getting a little egotistical, and she was going to bring me back down to earth. Like, look, what are you doing? Like, this isn't you. What are you doing? Let's take a step back. Let's make sure you can fit through the doorway when you get in, so your head's not too big, and let's just go out there and do it. And that was definitely necessary last year. But yeah, spiritually it was great because I was going through the kind of the uprise, and one of the big believers on our team, Blake Trinan, he was going through kind of the downswing. And so we're crossing paths, and he had done it the year before, so I was able to lean on him. He was able to lean on me because I'd been going the other way last year. Just being able to kind of go through personal experiences and just kind of lean on each other for guidance, and that was good. I mean, I don't think I would have been able to do it as well as last year without kind of having that guy in my ear, just being able to kind of like talk me through certain things, and whether it be spiritually, whether it be on the field. But yeah, I think it's not enough gets taken into the clubhouse effect of certain guys on the team that are just, without those guys, I mean, the clubhouse doesn't work.
Did it help that you that it wasn't an immediate success, we'll say. Not that you didn't have success. I mean, you were 22 when you get called to the big leagues, and that's an awesome accomplishment to do it at such a young age. But did it help that you had been through the ringer a little bit, right? And you had seen and you had paid your dues and you had been up and down, you had injuries and you had situations where you weren't just winning 20 games as a rookie. Like I think about Dwight Gooden, who won 17 games rookie of the year, 24-4 at 20 years old, and then could never replicate that again. Not that he wasn't a good pitcher, and that's a long time ago. But did it help that you kind of went through some of the struggles that you went through to appreciate it, even though the head did get a little big, that you could appreciate it a little bit more when the success on the level that it happened last year came to you in what I guess your ninth season?
Yeah, I think if I had have succeeded straight away, I'd be on a completely different path right now. I don't know where I'd be. Obviously, no one can tell, but I think everything happens for a reason. God has a plan for everything that happens. And yeah, I think I needed to kind of have that kind of uprise as a 22-year-old making to the big leagues and then be knocked down a little bit. And then it took me several times to get knocked down before realizing, hey, look, let's just go to it. And then in 2015, I was up with the Jays, had a really good year. And the same thing, I was on that upswing, and then I got knocked down again. I got traded. I got traded away from the team that I loved to a brand new environment, and I was thrust into certain roles that I wasn't expecting. And going over to Oakland was like it was a blessing, but it took me a while to understand that blessing. And it was one of those things. I was playing there. I was consistently in the big leagues. I was thinking that this is just going to be what it is. I'm going to be completely fine, and nothing's going to happen. And then 2018 comes along, I get knocked down again, and I think I'm just taking away those expectations. I'm taking away the need to kind of have a defined image or do this or do that or follow along to whatever everyone else is telling me. So now I just kind of live by my own flag, and if I think this is going to be if I think this is the right way to do things, I'm going to do it that way. And it seems to pay off. Seemed to pay off last year pretty well, but it's always that back and forth. You want the input from people, but you also want to make sure that you stay true to yourself. And that was the fine line that I was able to walk last year.
Yeah, I love that it was your ninth season that you get that first All-Star game too, and kind of appreciating that more. Can you tell us about that experience? Maybe share what the coolest thing was about going through that All-Star game experience. You pitched in the game and certainly just all the festivities that lead up for those, I guess, 48 hours or so around it.
Yeah, so when they had first announced the All-Star team, I was actually quite annoyed I didn't make the team.
Yeah,
I had at that point I had like a 1.1, like I was leading the American League in ERA by a decent chunk, and I was I was extremely frustrated. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
sure.
And then that was in Anaheim, so I get my hair cut by Laddie the barber, and then as I'm walking back into the clubhouse, Blake pulls me aside, like Blake trying to pulls me aside and was like, "Hey, look, don't worry about it. Look, I went through some things last year where I thought I was ahead of where I should have been. I thought I should have won a couple things. Didn't end up happening, and I took it very poorly. I can see this is affecting you, but just keep your head up. Everything will figure itself out. God has a reason for everything. The big man upstairs he's got you, and he's not gonna give you anything that you can't handle. So
Mm.
that was really huge for me, just kind of hearing that from him. I don't think I pitched that night, but I think I threw a couple nights later and was able to go out there and have a scoreless inning. And all of a sudden, we fly from LA to Seattle. As soon as we get to Seattle the next day, Bomel calls me to the office to say, "Hey, yeah, you're making the All Star team. One of the guys pulled out, so you're headed to Cleveland." So called my wife, and that was a cool feeling calling my wife because we were both frustrated that I didn't make it. But then looking at the bright side of life, I mean, like, look, now we get a 3-day vacation. We were going to Big Sur. We had a hotel booked. Like, she had legitimately booked a hotel that morning. So we ended up figuring all that out, and then we're able to meet in Cleveland, which is she grew up about an hour and a half out of Cleveland, which is another thing. So her dad was able to come to the game. We had some friends from Florida come to the game. My parents were able to kind of rearrange their flights and stuff like that to get over, and that was probably the coolest experience, just having those people there. And I mean, of course, the All-Star game I make is the one where they have sleeveless jerseys, which is just I don't like sleeveless jerseys, but
Yeah,
it is what it is. But
sure.
it's just yeah, that was a cool experience. But just being able to kind of talk to the guys, I played catch with John Means from Baltimore. That was pretty cool. But able to talk to guys all of a sudden and just sitting there and meeting some of the guys who I've played against for so many years, but had never actually had like a full in-depth conversation with was fascinating. And I mean, I tell you what, it's a tiring 48 hours. between the amount of things you have to sign on the first day for the home run derby for everything, and then the next day when you get there and it's all the guys on the team that want stuff signed. There's a lot that goes into it that I didn't expect, and it kind of makes you understand why if you've made 10 or 12, that you may opt out of one every now and then just to kind of have those 4 days. But I wouldn't change that for the world. I loved every minute of it, and I was just happy to go out there and have a somewhat exciting inning where I was able to strike out three, hit the backstop on the full, and give up a homer. So
I
it was
remember
an
all
interesting
that.
inning.
That's okay though. You'll never, like I say, it's your first experience, right? And they always say there's nothing like your first, and that has to be such a cool, amazing experience. And you mentioned Christy. She's a rock star. I've gotten to meet her and got to hang out with you guys a little bit at PAO and a few different places. Walk me through that success conversation again. You said that she kind of was knocking you down a few notches, and I'm wondering what she and certainly what God taught you last year about success. It's obviously happening on the field, but handling success. And success is a weird word, right? Because success in the eyes of God is that you're being obedient to Him. And success in the eyes of the world is that you have a 1.80 ERA and you're named Sporting News Pitcher of the Year. So walk us through kind of just handling success and getting that closer role and sort of what that meant from your wife being there to support you through that. Because I thought that was something when you touched on earlier that was really important to mention.
Yeah, we go back and forth. There's certain times where I'm doing well and I'm in a lower role that she thinks I should be doing better, and I'm able to talk her off a ledge. And when I'm doing well, she's able to notice trends. So it's whether I'm constantly on my phone, whether I'm constantly like just doing random stuff, or like putting myself out there for interviews, or making sure that I'm loud in the clubhouse. She's able to kind of pick those trends out and be like, look, take a step back. Don't put yourself in the spotlight so much, because at the end of the day, this is where everything goes downhill. You go out there, you try and be the best thing that everyone's ever seen and before and off the field, and that's when it gets dangerous. All you need to do is take care of what's on the field. Your personality's somewhat abrasive enough. You don't need to worry about too much with that. You're going to be an interesting guy anyway. Don't go overboard and don't try and do too much. And it's just there were certain times where I'm pitching and she'll be like, "What? What was that? What were you doing out there?"
Yeah.
And like it was just one of those things where I'm like, okay, I need to lock it back in, focus a little bit more on something. And yeah, it's just she was able to kind of guide me through that. But there's certain times where she's just sitting there and she goes, something's wrong. And it's just that kind of sense that she has, that she goes, something's wrong, and she'll be like, hey, what's up? And it will be kind of one of those things where we go back and forth. All of a sudden it's like, no, I'm just not feeling great right now. And it's just, we have those things where we go back and forth. She's able to read me like a book even when she's not around. It's great because it's able to kind of keep me down to earth, making sure I'm not kind of getting too big for my britches, and making sure that I'm kind of I'm a pretty easygoing guy. Like when I'm on the road, I read on the plane, I'll read at the clubhouse. I don't really do too much. If we're in a city that I like to be in, I'll just walk around and get a coffee and just wander around, listen to music or call her, and that's kind of my day. Like I don't go out, I don't do anything like that. I'm making sure I'm being responsible at night and all this, because at the end of the day, I don't drink. So I mean, I'm not going to go out for any reason. So it's just making
Right.
sure I'm prepared and asleep and ready all this. And it's nice having that kind of comforting in the ear. Like no matter what happens, I call her before I go to sleep every night, regardless of how it's going. And it's that kind of the normalcy of just life in this crazy world where we're living, where you're constantly thrust up, especially when you're having a good year. There's so many things that are pulling you in each way.
Yeah.
Just having that kind of normalcy of being able to call my wife, making sure that I know that like she knows that I love her every night, and making sure that we go to sleep and when we wake up and she's the first person I text every morning.
No, that's good. Last couple questions here. How long do you think you'll need to get ready? Like once the season is announced that it's going to return, and let's say it's July 4th, that was rumors that we heard. We don't know if that's the case yet at least at the point of this taping, but how much time do you think you'd need to just say, okay, I need this amount of time, this amount of throws, whatever, to be ready? Because you're a relief pitcher, and I think that helps. It's a lot different than maybe a
Mhm.
starter has to kind of get back into. But for you, how much time do you think you'd need?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to need 2 or 3 weeks, 3 weeks at max. I mean, 2 weeks. I mean, I just need 3 to 4 outings, and that's all I'm going to need. I don't have to worry about spacing or anything like that. Like I was ready to go on March 12th. Like I was like that would have been my outing. Where as soon as I had that outing, I was talking to my pitching coach, like, look, if this one goes well, like I am set. We can kind of map it out so that I am completely ready for the season, where I'm not being like feeling like I'm overdone or I'm underdone or anything like that. Like I am ready to go,
Yeah.
and obviously everything happens. So yeah, it's just I think I'm easier than most because I consistently throw a lot. And so, like, I'm going to go in there and I don't need to worry about too much else other than making sure the ball's fine. That's the good thing. I'm not trying to win a spot, just going out there and making sure that everything's coming out well. Obviously, the competitive nature comes out, and I don't want to get shelled and be like, oh, I felt fine, so it's good. So
Yeah.
it's just, it'll be interesting to see how it goes because spring training is tough just trying to get used to the atmosphere because you're pitching against guys and there's very little atmosphere in spring training. It's a tough thing to kind of get amped up for compared to the season.
Yeah.
And so this year is going to be extremely difficult with that. I'm just not sure how it's going to go. I've got to imagine like I'm going to be feeling fine, but maybe mentally I'm just not quite prepared for the rigors of the season just yet, especially with no fans. So we'll see how
Yeah.
it goes. But for me, 3 to 4 outings, I'll be ready to go. The big thing is starting pitchers, making sure they've got enough innings in, and that all depends. If there's expanded rosters, we may not need the starters to go as deep originally, and they can start off being like 4 or 5 innings rather than the 6 or 7, and that way we can get it going a little bit earlier. But I mean, well, it'll be very interesting to see who comes into camp again, who kind of didn't take the time, who didn't work out, who didn't stay prepared. So hopefully everyone did, and hopefully this will be the year that Oakland can do something special.
There it is. I mean, you've had 2 straight postseason berths, so why not make it 3 and go even deeper in 2020? You know, I forgot to ask you as my last question here. You're from Perth, Australia, I presume, and I forgot here, so forgive me. You have family in Australia still. What is this
Yeah.
like over there in Australia?
So my parents and my sister still over there. My sister's actually getting married this December, so that's kind of up in the air right now. They're still planning on going ahead with it, but they're just not sure the amount of people and everything like that. But yeah, my home state hasn't had a case in about a week and a half now. They had 15 open cases last time I spoke to my dad last week. So they're knocking it down, but they also shut down domestically. So if you weren't from Western Australia, you couldn't get into Western Australia. So they
Mm,
shut that down. Like my dad was going to school and he was driving about 2 hour drive to school, and he'd have to had an ID checkpoint to get to school. So he had to make sure he was like showed his ID, the fact that this is where he was going and why he was going there. I think that helps stop everything. But yeah, Australia, they obviously don't have the population the US does, but they were pretty on top of it, and yeah, they were able to knock a lot of it out. So South Australia, West Australia, Northern Territory have been doing really well, and the eastern states are coming along as well. Like it's they're able to get to the point where they can track every single case now, which is obviously what you're trying to get to everywhere in the world is making sure that okay, if this is it, we can track where you got it from and making sure how many other people are infected to kind of make sure that everyone else stays safe around them.
did you get tested? I forgot to ask that. Were the players tested, baseball players?
No, we haven't had any testing yet. That'll be part of the negotiations to make sure that we can get back to playing safely. Is getting tested and making sure everything's kind of safe and healthy. We'll see how it goes, but obviously the Korean Baseball League has been doing some special things over there, making sure that all their guys are tested and all their guys are making sure they're all staying safe and discouraging high fives and all this sort of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how MLB implements that. But as long as we can get it safely, I mean, the players are raring to go. We just can't wait to get back, and hopefully we can put something on TV and brighten up some people's days.
You just made me think like you're a closer, and I'm going to close right here, but you're a closer and you get the ball, you strike out the guy, you win the game, and the catcher runs and gives you a high five, a little hug. And I'm thinking, it's going to look really weird when he throws you the ball and everybody just kind of like fist bumps or doesn't even like do the normal, hand high five roll call or whatever you want to call it that you'd normally do after a win. That's got to be a little weird to get used to, I would think, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be definitely interesting to see what safety protocols are introduced. Obviously,
Yeah.
not only the players, but the staff, everyone around the stadium, with the clubhouse guys, the umpires. It's just that's going to be the biggest thing. It's more than just the players. It's the players, the umpires, the clubhouse attendants, the guys who are rubbing up the balls. Because I mean, if that guy's sick, then he can like theoretically infect every single person on the field, and that's just
Yeah.
that could be dangerous. But it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, baseball's it's not a contact sport, but people come into contact very very regularly. So we'll see what happens. I mean, social distancing is going to be kind of a little hard in the Oakland's clubhouse because it's a little bit smaller. Hopefully, they've been redoing the Raiders one now, that so we can get up there. It's a little bit bigger for us, so
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes. But yeah, as long as safety is the biggest thing right now, not only for the players but for everyone involved, and if
of
we can get
course.
that figured out, I think everything else will figure itself out for sure.
Absolutely. Looking forward to hopefully seeing you back on the field in 2020. Liam Hendriks, thanks, buddy. Thanks for being here. All the best to you, and hopefully we'll have you back on again sometime soon, maybe in the off season.
All right, thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.